Hare Krishna, and a very warm welcome to all the participants who have joined for our today's special session. So, from the previous Thursdays, we had attended the session of Overcoming the Lower Nature by His Grace Suta Goswami Prabhuji on 27th May. On the 3rd of June, we learned the art of anger management from Anand Prabhuji. And from the on 10th June, we just learned the art of smart work by Niranjan Prabhuji. So continuing that journey, but with a little slight change into the dates, because we wanted you to have the most benefit from our Seedhi Baat Prabhuji ke Saath session also, which was very special as like the routine ones. This time we are having a very special session on art of parenting, as we know. Just to give you the introduction about our speakers for today's session. First, I'll start with the introduction of Deepti Shekhar Mataji. She is associated with early childhood education. With her MCA degree from University of Bangalore, she has been an former HR professional before she switched her focus from her corporate services to this early childhood education from 10 years. So she has been working into that. Currently, she is the director of Adler International Preschool and Childcare in Magarpatta city in Hadapsar here in Pune. Second one, Mr. Vijay Ramanji. He is associated with the global auto industry for last 22 years, and with his degree in MBA from University of Michigan, he had been into the leadership roles for over 15 years, and currently he is the CEO of Autocentric, which is a platform that connects the buyers and suppliers for the automobile industries. So without wasting much time, let us hear from them the art of parenting. We are really grateful and to Prabhuji and Mataji for having and providing coming with us.
Hare Krishna. Are we audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
We would like to also share our screen. So let me just try doing that.
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah. Able to see us?
I guess no. You can try resharing it once again. If
suddenly it's like, yeah, 1 second. Screen share. Are you able to see our screen?
Yes, your screen is visible to us. Just a humble request before we start before you start with your session, can you please disable annotations from your side also? The settings are available to you to disable annotations.
How do I do that? I have not hardly used annotate. Okay.
Into the options, yes. It would be the first one in the second section. In the 3 dots.
Sorry, there's mute, there's stop video.
They're very right. There are 3 dots. Into that, there will be the first option in the second section. Disable annotations for users.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for that introduction.
And like you mentioned, I am Vijay Raman and this is my wife Deepti, and we are very thankful to Sanatan Prabhu and the BYC team for giving us an opportunity to have a discussion today on the art of parenting, what we can learn from the scriptures. Before we start, we would like to offer the Mangalacharan prayers, and then we'll start.
Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaiham Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajata Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Savadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami iti namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Veshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you. Parenting is the art of parenting is a very vast topic, and it is quite difficult to cover it in a short period of time. We will try our best. Now, once we Google or we look at books for parenting online, there will be vast number of books that will come up, and each of them will have their own inputs on different styles of parenting and different techniques of parenting. Some are written by people who are expert parents. Some are probably research-based. So we decided that today it's important for us to have this session based on what scriptures tell us. What do scriptures tell us about parenting? So our focus today would be completely to understand learnings from the scriptures about the art of parenting.
We're just trying to go to the next slide here. Are you able to see the next slide? Sorry about this. How do we?
It is not reflected on our screen, Prabhuji.
Sorry. Yeah, it's coming here. No, that's recording. Prabhuji, yeah.
You can try to reshare it once, or I can also present if you need. You can share me on the chat or mail something.
Okay. And okay, Prabhu. Stop sharing.
If you have stopped the sharing, okay, but it's not getting reflected, I suppose, to our screens.
Now you can see the share again, but we are not able to come out of this window. That's the problem. Sorry about this. It's sharing remote control. Okay, clear.
If your system is hung, you can rejoin.
I think we should.
Sorry?
We should exit.
If your system is hung, you can rejoin.
Okay. Yeah, try joining from there.
Apologies to all our participants for the technical issues that we are facing. It is because we'll be starting very soon, as soon as they just join us. Thank you very much. Please stay tuned. Hare Krishna. Hello.
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Can you see us now? Okay.
Yes, you are visible to us. So, would you like to just share the PPT?
I have emailed the PPT as well to Sanatan Prabhu and Suta Goswami Prabhu, the BYC ID. Is there any other ID you would want us to send it to? Prabhuji, are able to see us now? See the slides now?
Yes, slides are
Yes, visible.
Okay, great. So we can continue, I guess.
It's working perfectly. We can go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Sorry about that. Our apologies for the delay. So we should start. So before we talk about the art of parenting, first of all, let's take a look and talk about what is the purpose of having a child. The purpose of Grihastha Ashram. That is the main point here. So there's a verse from Lord Rishabdeva. Rishabdeva is one of the incarnations of the Lord. He comes under the lineage of Priyavrata Maharaj. There's a beautiful verse in the 5th canto, 5th chapter.
Which says, Guru na sasyat, svajano na sasyat, pita na sasyat, janani na sasyat, devam na tat sasyan, na patischa sasyan, na mochayet yaha samupetam mrityu.
Okay. So the translation is, I've got it in red over here. One who cannot deliver his dependents from the path of repeated birth and death should never become a spiritual master, a father, a husband, a mother, or a worshipable demigod. Quite a strong statement. So we're saying, the whole purpose, if you're bearing a child, if you're going to have a child, you're taking up the responsibility of delivering this child out of this repeated birth and death. That is the main purpose. That is our duty and our role. So in Bhagavad Gita, in one of the verses, Krishna also says that if somebody practices bhakti, And if they are not able to attain perfection, he gives them another opportunity by having them in another family, in a Brahmana family or another family who are pious and who are into Krishna consciousness. So imagine most of us having children. So we have that responsibility which has been given by Krishna. We are not owners of these children. We actually have some responsibility in terms of how we want to raise them. At a minimum, what we're saying is the whole idea is to bear and raise Krishna consciousness children who can spread the glories of the Lord. Unfortunately, a lot of us seem to have children, just to please someone. It is either to please parents or for somebody else or for our own khushi, as we call it. But what happens is, in the end, it becomes more of a kabhi khushi, kabhi gum, rather than just remaining as a khushi.
So parents are co-creators in this process. So with great power comes great responsibility.
Go next.
So now, as per our Vedic rituals, there are Garbhadan Sanskar, and there are actually 16 sanskaras which a person goes through, right from the Garbhadan Sanskar to the death, that is the last sanskara. So the importance of Garbhadan Sanskar is very important, and often we don't realize how important it is. And most often in the marriage rituals, actually, as per the mantras that are chanted, the husband and wife are promising to each other and promising to the Lord that we will bring in children only when we are able to deliver them from this the cycle of birth and death. Not many of us actually know it. We don't even realize it. So the importance of Garbhadan Sanskar is essential, and we need to realize that. And when we have conception of children, it is for peace. It has to be as a service to the Lord. It is not in a mood for sense gratification or in a mode of passion and ignorance. So this is what our scripture says. So now we'll quote an example, a story, which is again from the Srimad Bhagavatam, on how Kashyapa Muni and Diti conceived Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Why did that happen? It happened only because the frame of the mind that the mother had at that point of conception. So the frame of the parents at the time of conception and the timing at which we do certain, we plan to have a family is very, very important. As per our scriptures, we need to make sure that everything is followed according to the Vedic rituals and Vedic injunctions.
So in this case, as you can read the underlined words, the Kashyapa Muni, after the conception, he says, because of your mind being polluted, because of defilement of the particular time, here we are, it's going to, and the last verse says, unlucky women, they are, these two boys will be cause of lamentation to all the three words. So, and we all know about Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu and what they did. So such great demons were born because the consciousness was not right, and the time of birth was not right.
Now, what do we learn from Chanakya Niti? Now that we've already seen about conception, now that we have children in our lives, what does Chanakya Niti tell us on how we need to handle children? So he has a very nice breakup based on the years. So he says ages 0 to 5. We need to adore children. We need to pamper them. We need to give them all the love and care that's possible. Why? Because this is the phase that children are looking up to us. I mean, they are completely innocent. They don't know anything. And this is the time that they're looking up to the parents, because other than parents, a child doesn't know anything. So this is the time for us to bond with our children and kind of make sure that we are there with them. So we need to love them. But often what happens, this is the age group where parents sometimes are extremely frustrated and they kind of even hit children. So ages 0 to 5, the brain cells are developing at such a rapid pace that the connections are happening. This is the time to kind of give them the love and affection. Next, 5 to 15. Here, these are the formative years where the children are actually kind of developing a personality. They are coming to know, they're kind of getting to that independent level. They outgrow from that shell of, being under the control of parents. Now they want to do things on their own. This is the time where they could make mistakes. So we need to make sure that we discipline them. So ages 5 to 15, according to Chanakya Niti, is the time to discipline your child and make sure that he realizes or she realizes what is right and what is wrong. 16 plus, By the time that they reach 16, we need to start treating them as a friend, because they are almost an adult. They are capable of making certain decisions on their own. And this is probably the phase if parents are in that, if in the audience, if parents are of children who are 16 plus, they no longer want to celebrate birthdays with parents. They no longer want to, spend too much time with parents. They are like seeking for peer attention and peer involvement. So we need to turn to be that peer. We need to have such a great rapport with our children that they are our friends. And then at 18 plus, grown-up children are friends. So we will touch upon how an parent has to behave with grown-up children in the later slides.
Okay. So we talked about attachment and treating our children as darling from the age 0 to 5, but unfortunately, it happens throughout the life of a child, I guess, or as long as a parent is alive. To a parent, the child is always a darling. It ends up more that way, and there's a deep sense of attachment. As much as what we learn from the Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam about letting go of the attachment, the one one area where we are not able to let go of the attachment is primarily with respect to our children. There's a deep sense of attachment, and no better examples than Dhritarashtra and Dronacharya. Dhritarashtra, of course, he had his own set of issues right from his childhood, because he didn't get the throne. So there was always a little bit of a grudge inside him. And with that, as his children were born, he always wanted to support his children, irrespective of whether they were right or wrong. In the case of Dronacharya was a very pious Brahmana, but the attachment towards his son. Dronacharya was somebody who knew the right and wrong. He was the guru of the Pandavas and the Kauravas. He was such a learned person. He knew what was right and wrong. But when it came to his son, he was so attached that even though he knew that his son was not qualified, he gave him the Brahmastra. He taught him how to use the Brahmastra. So, and which was about to cause a major catastrophe. Thanks to Krishna, it was avoided. But otherwise, Brahmastra was given to somebody who actually had no idea about the Brahmastra or on how to use it. Similarly, in today's world, parents are so attached to their children that we are ready to do anything for the children. Children no longer hear the word no. Whatever they want, they get it immediately, right? And it goes all the way through that there is now what is called nepotism. If a father is a doctor, the child becomes a doctor, irrespective of whether a child is qualified or not. Same way, if father is a politician, the child becomes a politician. So if you see nowadays, there's more and more of, just because a child might not be qualified enough to become a doctor, but pay the capitation fee, and there you go, a doctor is born. Pay the capitation fee, you have engineers, and sometimes a lot of deserving students probably don't get it. So all the cause of attachment that one has with their children. And the best example of what might come up, which I dread the most, is probably in 3 years' time, we might even have a prime minister who was a son or a grandson of former prime ministers. And that's a little worrisome actually right now. And all this is because the parents are so attached that they feel, okay, irrespective of their qualification, this son or this daughter of mine will be successful irrespective of their capability. Now, while attachment is there, the other quality of a parent is they want their child to be the best of the best of the best, right? Every parent wants their child to be the best. They want to push. But let's take a step back. I want to quote this from Radhanath Swami Maharaj. I heard in one of his lectures. He said, there is only one best of the best of the best. First of all, let's all be very clear. That is Krishna. He has the 6 opulences. He is the best of the best of the best. He is all fame, beauty, wealth, knowledge, strength, and renunciation. So that all 6 is with him. The rest of us have what is called potential. Everybody has a potential. And a parent's goal has to ensure that we try to help our child reach that potential. That's it. But what happens? We all want them to push beyond their potential due to sheer attachment, because we want them to achieve what we have probably not achieved. We want them to become the next famous superstar, the Tendulkar of the world, or the Sundar Pichai, or you name it. But we want them to. So with that attachment and with that expectation comes frustration. And with that frustration comes anger. And then our life is ruined. As mentioned by Krishna in verses 2.62 and 2.63 in the Gita himself.
He says, Dhyaito Vishayan Pumsa Sangasteshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha Kama Krodho Bhujayate. So when we have this anger, why does this anger come? I think you also attended an entire session on anger and how to control anger. So we won't go into that. But what is most important is when we have an expectation, that is when anger arises. So we need to understand to set the right kind of expectations for our children and for ourselves as parents. We cannot expect them to achieve everything that we couldn't possibly achieve.
Yeah. So, and what this happens is if you read the translation, while contemplating on the objects of the senses here are our children. One develops attachment to them. Attachment leads to desire, and desire leads to anger. And finally, if you read the last line, when the memory is bewildered, the intellect gets destroyed. When the intellect is destroyed, one is completely ruined. So you hear cases of suicides. The recent one is about a month or so ago. We've all seen the movie Dangal. At least a lot of people would have seen the movie Dangal. You saw the success story of it on how two small-time girls were raised by and pushed hard by the parents, by their father, and they become gold medalists. Last month, one of their cousins was in state final championship, and she lost the finals. And she went and committed suicide. So that is the other side of it. When you push and push and push, some can take it, but not all can take it.
So what do we have to do? We need to help children deal with failures. Failure is something that's going to happen to everyone, including our children. We have seen failures, our children will also see failures. So as parents, we need to make sure that we always focus on how the process is, how enjoyable their experience of doing something is, rather than winning or rather than the end goal. Most times parents say, first aana hai class mein. You need to, in the running race, oh, if you had done a little bit more, it's good to encourage. But then what are we constantly telling them? Be first, be first. And when they're not first, they're not able to deal with it. So it's okay to not be first. It's okay to try. And it's okay to take the failure with pride as well, because you tried to do something. That is what is important as parents today. So we need to prepare our child, because world is not as rosy as it sounds. It's going to be harsh on our children when they kind of leave our shelter. So the number of increasing cases of suicides or inability of children, or the easier way of children taking to drugs, all this happens only because they are not used to failures.
They don't know how to deal with failures. So as Krishna says, one who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme God, is not affected by sinful action, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. So basically what we're saying is, do your work and leave the rest to Lord. Okay? Easier said than done. But if you do your work and don't expect that, if you don't have an expectation of a result, then it's easier to deal with failure. And that is what we need to inculcate in our children, rather than just pushing them into being the best of the best of the best.
Now, how are we going to do that? How are we going to do that? We are going to do that by making sure that our children are in the right company. Prabhupada keeps stressing the importance of association. Every scripture that we read, there's in almost every chapter that we read, there are prayers, and there is always an emphasis on importance of association. Quoting Prabhupada, he says, by association with devotees, dirty things within the heart of a materialistic man are gradually washed away. We are all in this material world. We are all materialistic. We are trying our best to get better and better as each day goes by. So how does that happen? That's going to happen only when we are in the right association. So in the materialistic context, what should be that right association that we're looking for our children? We need to be very careful in what kind of schools we put our children into, what kind of neighborhood that we live in, what kind of caregivers that our children are entrusted with, and what kind of friends they are dealing with. Why? These are very important things, because in school, they have not just the influence of peer group, they learn a lot from peers, not just the teachers, they learn a lot from peers. So choosing the right school, living in a right neighborhood where you have like-minded people, so the children are also like-minded, and that is the kind of association that our children are getting. And caregivers, this is the most important aspect in parenting, because now with both parents working, often we have other caregivers in our life. As long as it's grandparents, yes, they are always going to shower that love and care and take good care of our children. But then there are some families where we are nuclear families, so we don't have the luxury of having the company of our grandparents with our children. And when we choose these caregivers, we need to be extremely, extremely careful, because our children are spending so much time with these caregivers. So what kind of things are they learning from them? That is extremely important. And of course, friends goes without saying, right? Because we're all social beings, so are our children. So they're going to learn from friends. Now, when we say caregivers, I would like to say, I'm not sure the source of this, but then it's a very interesting thought. When we in a house, we kind of lock our gold, money, everything, and we keep those keys so safely. And then when it comes to our children, we are willing to leave our children with the caregiver and go out. So when we are doing such things, so are we telling our children that the money and the gold and everything is so much more precious than you are? So this is something that that touched my heart. And when I often see parents who are not able to give time to their children, I kind of quote this to them and say the importance of making sure that you understand that your child is extremely precious to you, more precious than any other jewels or money that you have. Now, in today's world, best friend of a child is gadgets. They want to be always with gadgets, and thanks to COVID, we're also not able to restrict that, because their classes are online and they're always having the phone and the laptop with them. So that is another aspect as parents, we need to monitor on how much and what kind of exposure our children are having. It is our right to ensure that we check on them, because that is also an association that's happening for our children. Now, another important thing is, what kind of company are we keeping? What kind of association do we have? Because most important thing is children are observing us. Now, if we are constantly attending kitty parties and socializing with friends, having drinks over at home, then our children feel this is right. And they're growing up looking at all these things. So what the famous Mexican quote which says, tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. It's so right. It's so applicable, because the kind of company that we keep is what our children will learn from. And the scriptures also tell us that we are an average of the top 5 people who are in our lives. So it's very important to understand who those top 5 people are in our life, because that association, the average of that is what we will be, and that is what will impact our children.
So who are these biggest associates of our children? It's the father and the mother, the parents, because they are the ones with whom children are there most of their time. The dad is the first hero of a child. I still remember when I used to ask my 5-year-old, when my son was 5, I used to ask him on what he wanted to become, and he will say, I want to become daddy. You know, that's all he knew, because they would say, oh, I want to become daddy, I want to become mama. That's how I want to grow up, be. That's how I want to be when I grow up. So again, let me start with a quote from Lord Rishabhdeva. Rishabhdeva was an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself, from the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam. He says, my dear boys, of all the living entities who have accepted material bodies in this world, one who has been awarded this human form should not work hard day and night simply for sense gratification, which is available even for dogs and hogs that eat stool. Quite a strong statement. So point here is, we actually sometimes as fathers tend to set a benchmark. We say work is worship, work hard, work hard, work hard. A lot of children would say, oh, I'm hardly seeing my father. Because his dad goes to office in the morning, comes late in the night, meeting. After coming home, sometimes there is calls, has to travel, there are a lot of people who travel probably 25 days in a month, right? And now with the pandemic and work from home, apparently the workload has actually increased for a lot of us. The father is there, but is inside a room on meeting after meeting, day in and day out. Okay, of course, these are unavoidable. It's understandable. I'm sure a lot of people would go, what do we do for a living then? But The whole point is we have to strike that balance and keep realizing, okay, what is the purpose of our life? What is the purpose of raising our children? Because if we are just going to keep working and have no time for our children, okay, and I have no time to kind of tell them why we are leading this life, okay, then there's no difference between us and the animals, because everybody is just existing. We're eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. That is all we're doing. So
again, in continuation to that, how do we do it? We have, of course, we need to work. So we need to look at the quality of time that we're spending with children. It may not necessarily the quantity. We don't say that you need to spend hours and hours with your children, but that quality is very important. Not missing your child's PTMs, not missing your child's annual days, or any important thing that, as children, all these things are important to them. So striking a balance to make sure as fathers are available to attend these events, that makes it, that's so important to a child.
Yes. And continuing on the teachings of Rishabdeva, I'll come back to the last couple of lines. If one puts into the bondage of karmic activity his disciple, son, or citizen who is bereft of transcendental vision, how will one profit? It is like leading a blind man to a dark well and causing him to fall in. So again, we are already into the karmic cycle, day in and day out, work, then take a vacation, which is all sense gratification. Constantly, why do we work? And we teach our children, we have to come first in class. What kya package mila when you get us a job? How, what is your title now? When are you going to get the next promotion? It's all about, again, material sense, which is okay, right? Is reality, okay, which we have to do. But if that is all we talk about, and there's no talk about the actual reason of why we are leading this life, then it is just like leading a blind man to the well, because our children are not aware. We are the ones who are supposed to let them know the purpose of life. But instead, we keep talking only about the karmic cycle and material sense gratification. It is like leading a blind man into a dark well and causing him to fall.
Now, role of the mother is also important. So this is art of parenting. So parent means both mother and father. So each one has to play their part with perfection in order to make this entire thing successful. So here we like to quote the pastime from Dhruv Maharaj. Dhruv Maharaj he's the one who lives on Dhruv planet. Everybody knows Dhruv Maharaj, the Dhruv Tarams. There are so many children who are named after Dhruv Maharaj as well. Now, why is he so famous? Why is he so well known? Because of the guidance that his mother gave. At the age of 5, when Dhruv Maharaj just wanted to sit on his father's lap, and it did not happen, and he was upset, and he had to hear harsh words. And then when he came crying to his mother didn't say, "Chalo beta, let's go and ask why you didn't get to sit there. I am also the mother. I am also the queen. How can that not happen? Come on, you need to sit. Let me come. I will take care." This is the tone of parents nowadays. This is how, I'm not saying every mother does it, but every parent wants to fight for the right of their child. And in that, we are leading them in the wrong direction. We're teaching them fighting is right. Come on, fight for your right. Yes, we need to fight for our rights. Yes, we need to understand that the other person has heard us and we do the right thing. But we need to respond. We cannot just react to situations. When we react again, connecting with anger, that is how the outcome will also be. So what did Suniti do? Queen Suniti said, without further delay, you must engage yourself in worshipping the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. She told a 5-year-old child, yes, that's what you need to do. You need to put your attention on the higher cause. Turn your attention to things which are more important. Ignore this. And as a result of that, what did Dhruv Maharaj get? He got the topmost position. So importance of the mother is to always guide the child by giving the right values at the right time.
So continuing on from that, so Queen Suniti said, follow the process of bhakti, please go and worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everybody might go like, okay, how do we apply it to today's world? Today you cannot have a child just go to the forest and start becoming a devotee and just pray to the Lord for every issue that you have. Exactly, you can't do that, and you still need to deal with your problems. But in parallel, bhakti helps in calming the mind. Bhakti helps in letting you think a little more clearly. And you cannot, at the same time, the other question is, how do I just instill bhakti immediately? You cannot become a Dhruv Maharaj overnight. And Krishna says the same thing. He says there are various ways you can do bhakti. Of course, the topmost is, he says, fix your mind upon me. I'm the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so fix your mind upon me. Engage all your intelligence in me. Okay, those are that is something that elevated souls do, after years and years of practice of bhakti. But you can't do that. Krishna then says, okay, no problem, I'll come a step down. If you cannot do that, that is okay. Just follow the regulated principles. Like how we are taught to follow our regulative principles. No meat eating, no alcohol, no illicit sex, no gambling. He says, okay, do that. And okay, that might also be difficult for some of us. So then Krishna says, okay, that's fine. If you cannot do that, that's okay. Then you just try to work for me. Whatever work you do, you think you're doing it for me. Have that kind of a consciousness and do your work. That is also bhakti. So he's being very merciful. He's giving a different option, right? Then somebody can say, oh, I cannot think of you. Okay, that's okay. Then in that case, don't even think of me. If you're unable to work in that consciousness, that's okay. Just do your work, but just give up the results. Don't expect the results. Don't try to, say you're the owner of all the results. So he says, just at least be that. Then you kind of become detached. Then you will still have a peace of mind. And if you still cannot do that, he then says, just at least cultivate knowledge. Cultivate knowledge about the Lord. Read the Gita, start from the Mahabharata, start from watching the Mahabharata. Right? So there are different ways by which we can induce bhakti into our children. And bhakti actually causes, they now get a friend, they get a permanent friend. Once you are in bhakti, they know that the Lord is their friend. What better? And that is in their mind. So whenever they are in distress, whenever they are thinking between what is right and wrong, they at least feel, okay, there is somebody, irrespective of my action, there's somebody who's going to take care of me, as long as I'm not going to have expectations. That's a beautiful thing. So while Krishna gave us these options, how do we get into bhakti? How do we involve our children in bhakti in our day-to-day lives, in our present-day lives? We'll get to that.
There are very simple ways of practicing bhakti. Bhakti doesn't mean that, we need to know all these shlokas by heart, we need to read scriptures. Stories are easiest way to include children. Children love stories. So why not narrate them stories which are related to scriptures? There are wonderful pastimes which are equally child-friendly. So narrating them will help them understand. They'll relate so much to a story. Eating prasad. Prasad is probably one of the easiest ways in which we can engage children into the practice of bhakti, because every day all of us cook, everything is made at home, and if we just dovetail that consciousness and think that, oh, I'm making this for the Lord, offer it to the Lord, and then let's eat it. That's what Krishna also says. So when we are making anything, it may be some tasty pizza that your child loves, but then offer it to the Lord and then give it to your child. So over a period of time when children are eating prasad, it definitely makes an impact on their consciousness. And this is something that we have personally experienced. We have seen the change in our children when we give them prasad, and now to a point that if it's not offered, they don't want to eat it. They ask, is this offered? And then only. It took some time. It's not like overnight we achieved this. It took some time, but then it's important to make that step. It's important to start that step, and parents can easily incorporate it. Now, all of us eat out. We eat out in so many restaurants. Why not we have, once in a way go to Govinda's. Govinda's is a restaurant in the temple. So why not, choose that once in a way? We're not saying every meal has to be there, but once in a way. Again, that becomes prasad. Then Ekadashi. In Maharashtra, everybody follows Ekadashi. Children can also follow Ekadashi. Krishna is so merciful. He never said that, every Ekadashi has to be Nirjala. He allows so many things. Children don't like sabudanas. Okay, they can eat vada. They can eat potatoes. There's like list of flours that can be used for Ekadashi. It's just important to just incorporate it in a subtle way. We also incorporated it in a subtle way, and today our children follow Ekadashi. They keep asking, when is Ekadashi? When is Ekadashi? Why? Because my son loves pizza, and we said every Ekadashi you will get pizza from BYC.
Which is a Ekadashi pizza.
It's an Ekadashi pizza. So they jumped up to the idea and they said, okay, let's follow Ekadashi. So it's about looking at what the child, what will appeal to the child, and then kind of using that. Some children love to sing, engage them in kirtans. Some children love to kind of cook. They are like so many of boys and girls who love to cook prasad. So engage them in making that food. Automatically that becomes a devotional service. Okay, they don't want to cook. They can just distribute prasad. Something that's offered, if it's distributed to their friends, that is again involvement in bhakti. And every child loves to participate. I mean, maybe dance, maybe music, maybe drama. They do that all the time in their school. Why not take part in festivals? That also is again devotional service. So it's very important to kind of identify which area will appeal to your child and then dovetail it towards bhakti.
Okay, so we spoke about how to, what are the things which are wrong? How do we try to work on our children and not go towards the attachment part or pushing them and things like that, and how we induce our children into bhakti. Now let's take a step back and focus on ourselves, in a sense, because parenting is as much about the parents as much as it is about the children. So one pastime we can all learn from is the Bharat Maharaja pastime. So Bharat Maharaja, he's the one, it's his name because of which our world is called the Bharatavarsha. It's not just India, the entire world is called Bharatavarsha. And the name Bharatavarsha came from Bharat Maharaj. Bharat Maharaj is the son of Rishabhadeva. He's the first son of Rishabhadeva, who's the incarnation of God himself. And they come under the lineage of Priyavrata Maharaj. Priyavrata Maharaj is the uncle of Dhruv Maharaj, to give you the entire lineage of that. So Bharat Maharaj was a highly, highly elevated soul. He was a king. On his name, it was called Bharatvarsha. He was such a great king. He had all the opulences, but he was a very, very, very wonderful devotee. And towards the later portion of his life, he gave up everything. His kingdom, his wife, his children, all the opulences, and he just came to the forest for bhakti. So such a wonderful bhakta he was, but he got attached to a small deer, a baby deer. And he got so attached that he slowly started losing his focus on bhakti. Okay, let me read the last few lines. Maharaja Bharata forgot the rules and regulations for the advancement of spiritual life, and he gradually forgot to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After a few days, he forgot everything but his spiritual advancement. So, about his spiritual advancement. So, imagine if this happens to somebody as elevated as Bharat Maharaj.
We are nothing.
We are absolutely nothing here. We are not even in the decimals of his level of elevation. Okay, is it not so easy for us to get attached? So we have to be extremely careful that while being attached to our children or our day-to-day life and trying to take care of every little thing our children want, that we forget the purpose of our life. So what happens? Bharat Maharaja was so attached. He was so attached to the deer. Let me read the verse again. Actually, the mind of king was absorbed in the body of the deer. And consequently, like those bereft of Krishna consciousness, he left the world, the deer and his material body, and acquired the body of a deer. Such a pious soul, he left everything, came to the forest for bhakti. And finally, at the moment of the final exam, his death, he was bereft of Krishna consciousness. He was not thinking of Krishna or the Lord. He was thinking of the deer, and consequently, he acquired the body of a deer.
So our scripture says, Ante Narayana Smriti is what we need to focus on. At the last moment of our life, we need to remember Narayana if we want to come out of this cycle of birth and death. So whatever our thoughts are, whatever our last thoughts are at the time of death, we will attain a body according to that. So if we have got Narayana Smriti, we will attain Narayana. If we have the Smriti of a deer, we'll get the deer's body.
And if we keep thinking about our children and what will happen, then we come back to this world. As there's another famous story of the story of Kailash. It's a very long story. We cannot probably, what's the time? It's a very long story. So the point is, Kailash, he was so worried about his children and taking care of the wealth. He was born as a dog to take care of the wealth and his children in the same house. So that's the last thing we would want, right? So in summary, there are 7 points that we covered overall. So let's just very quickly run through them.
What is the purpose of having children? The importance of the consciousness at the time of conception, attachment to our children, so that is the cause of our destruction. Don't get frustrated in trying to push your children to be the best of best. Association plays a major role in shaping our children. Simple ways to practice bhakti, and don't forget the purpose of your life. So these are 7 points. We thought we'll put it as 7 because there are 7 days in a week, and each day we can contemplate on one thing and then kind of inculcate them in our lives. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you
so much
for patiently listening to us, and we are very, very sorry. Kindly accept our apologies for exceeding the time due to the
initial technical glitch.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Really, thank you very much, Prabhuji and Mataji, for joining with us, and we're really grateful to you for sharing us the wisdom and the knowledge from the scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and Vedas, specifically tailor-made and customized with respect to the art of parenting. That is very crucial for so many parents in today's times. We are really hopeful that this session has brought a really good amount of positive change and a motivation for all the participants that are currently here, and those who will be watching the YouTube video in the future also. That will be helpful for them to get a good direction in line with all the scriptures and Vedas that we have. Just to request, Prabhuji, can we have your email ID that we can share to our participants, so that
Sure.
if they have any kind of queries also, they can just reach out to you to get the answers.
Definitely.
Definitely, Prabhuji. I'm just typing it in the chat window. I've given my email ID, yes.
Okay, so thank you very much for your time and all this wonderful presentation on this once again. We would like to just let our participants know that we are currently into planning about the other upcoming sessions that are going to be there, and the courses that we are planning to come up with in the future times. With respect to the feedback that you had given a few days ago, please, all the schedules of the Bhakti Yoga Club Kharadi that it is doing on a regular basis, whether it is a 4:30 a.m. chanting or Mangala Arati in the morning, Srimad Bhagavatam class, or in the evening Bhagavad Gita single shloka, evening Gaura Arati is there, and there are some weekly classes also that happen on Saturday and Sunday around 4 to 4:30. So you can check your WhatsApp groups to get more details about those, and you can join them according to your convenience times. Please stay tuned with us through that, and you will get more updates about those things on your WhatsApp groups. And also you can join our Telegram channel that we are planning to shift our all the notices to, so that there we can have a single-handed notice center for everyone to get all the information about the our Bhakti Yoga Club Kharadi Center. So thank you very much everyone for joining in with us today. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.